Our attention is going to be on what the business of President Tinubu and his team in faraway Netherlands. The president has been attending the Nigeria-Netherlands Business and Investment Forum in The Hague, where the president has emphasized the pivotal role of the ties between both countries in helping to strengthen the Nigerian economy and the trade relations between both countries. The president is saying that both countries must explore more creative channels of collaboration, whether it is through partnerships, joint ventures, or strategic alliances, in order to build bridges that connect markets and facilitate the flow of goods, services, ideas, and peoples. The president says his administration is enhancing a business environment in Nigeria to make it very friendly through various reforms, adding that these measures include the cleaning up of our foreign exchange market to make it more transparent for seamless business transactions, removal of the fuel subsidy, and the readiness of the CBN to provide the necessary window to allow foreign companies repatriate their profits, among several other issues. And of course, you can see there on the screen, there are some of major players within the president's cabinet that are present at that meeting. Those who are some ministers, including Minister of Agriculture, Minister of Trade, Foreign Affairs Minister. But what does this mean? All of these bilateral relations, and because the Minister of Economy is also there, Wale Edum. What are these meetings and these conversations? What do they mean for Nigeria? Because in all of these conversations, what matters is the bottom line, the Nigerian people. How much of food can be provided on the table, monies in the pocket, salaries in the purse of the average Nigerian worker, and the production on Nigerian soil. I've joining me, Mr. Muda. Yusuf is an economist who joins us virtually live from Lagos. Thank you so much, Mr. Yusuf, for joining us tonight. Let me begin by you giving us an appreciation of just how much of a boost could a business with Netherlands mean. What is doing business or trade transactions or relations with Netherlands? What does it mean for an economy like Nigeria?
Well, the visit posed a lot of promise for the Nigerian economy, given the gaps that we have and given the current development aspirations of the present administration. Netherlands has very strong capacities and capabilities in the area of agriculture, particularly tech-driven agriculture, in the area of ICT, and in the area of logistics, So, and there's a lot that we can benefit from that. And I'm sure that some of the engagements that are taking place are concerning this trip is how to leverage on this partnership to be able to strengthen our agricultural sector in the line of, taking into account the challenges we have with respect to food security, productivity in agriculture, and all of that. There's also a lot to learn or to benefit from partnership in the area of ICT, because Netherlands are also very strong country. They have strong capacities in the area of ICT, innovation, and all of that, just as we have heard from the Minister for Communications Technology. So, and of course, also in the area of port logistics. The Rotterdam port is the largest port in Europe. And in line with all the efforts of the administration, to modernize, to allow a technology-driven port system, international trade system, there's also a lot of things that we can gain from, partnership in the area of developing our ports, particularly in the area of, technical cooperation, in the area of attracting investment, and so on. So to that extent, I think the visit holds a lot of promise from an economic and business relations point of view.
You're very apt there, and you look at the statistics, which tells us perhaps the reason why This is also important. Some will think, why is it necessary for the president to be attending? And particularly some of the personnel in the cabinet that are there, and you are very apt. You look at it, Netherlands is the second largest exporter of agri-produce in the world. And you mentioned Rotterdam port also. These are also very important for exportation. Innovation is also very critical. Netherlands owes about 20% of the GDP of Netherlands, for example, is about 10% of 20% of their agri-produce, which means that there's a whole lot of lesson that Nigeria can learn from Netherlands' experience. From your own point of view, for those who are asking, production. If there is one immediate thing that Nigeria can take away from that experience, what would that be?
No, of course, this kind of interaction has to precede whatever concrete actions will come, in terms of investment. And don't forget, I think the focus of this kind of visit is actually to facilitate technology transfer, one, technical cooperation, two, and foreign direct investment. I mean, these are the key areas of focus. And you need to engage at this level to have a preliminary, engagement before concrete investments can follow. After the diplomatic engagements that we have seen, I'm sure there will be a parallel engagement on the side of the private sector. I'm sure there are quite a formidable private sector delegation that has gone with the president. So in terms of activating the investment dimension of this visit, it is the private sector players that will now take it off from where the president has stopped, because it's like preparing the ground for the private sector to be able to partner with their counterparts in Netherlands in practically all these critical areas where we have identified that Netherlands have some very strong competencies and capabilities. So it's like preparing the ground, and of course, the results may not be immediate, but for me, I think it is laying the foundation for much better investment flows to happen, and for much better technological cooperation to happen. So that is the way I see it. I mean, it's like laying the foundation for some of these things to develop into concrete, to crystallize into concrete investment outcomes.
Innovation is very key in the economy of Netherlands. But one thing that I'm seeing, which may be a negative for Netherlands, is the aging economy, which means that the workforce in their economy will need some kind of personnel, in which Nigeria has in enormity, has huge young population. Netherlands has aging population. And you think that there's an opportunity for a lot of Nigerians who are looking for such an opportunity?
Well, a bit of audio issues, but I think there are opportunities across board. Because the president talked about the fact that you have a young demographic population, which could provide a lot of opportunities, both for domestic development and even for also some very constructive and positive migration to those countries, to also develop themselves and broaden the scope of the cooperation and also the scope of their experience. So the cooperation along the demographics and taking advantage of the fact that we have useful population and taking advantage of what our young population is doing around ICT, because that is one area where Netherlands has very strong competencies. So we can leverage on that. Of course, we have challenges around insecurity, out of school children and all of that. But in spite of that, we know that our young Nigerians, the useful population, are doing quite a lot in the area of ICT, in the area of innovation and all of, and there's a whole lot of opportunities around that. So we expect that a lot should happen in terms of partnership, in terms of opportunities for our young people, particularly in the ICT space, to be able to take advantage of this this relationship that the president is seeking to further deepen or to further strengthen. And I also listened to the Minister of Agriculture talking about leveraging technology for agriculture. One of the biggest problems we have had in this country is that we are not leveraging technology to boost our agriculture. That is why we don't have our youths in the agricultural space. Most of the agricultural activities are still, depending on hoes and cutlasses, traditional ways of farming. That cannot help our food security. That cannot transform our agricultural sector. So there's a need to accelerate, the leveraging of technology, improvement in the yield, improvement in the cultivation technologies, improvement in all manner of ways in which we can leverage technology and encourage a lot more young people to go into agriculture, because the agricultural population in Nigeria is aging. And unless we get the young people interested in that, in that sector, the sector will stagnate, as we are beginning to see. And to get the young people to go into agriculture, it has to be technology driven. I think that is one major thing I think should form the outcome of this visit in terms of collaboration between Nigeria and Netherlands in the area of the technology-driven agriculture.
I think there is also a lot to learn. If you look at the freedom of the economy, you see that Netherlands is the 8th freest economy in the world. Nigeria sits 125th in the world. And what Netherlands and the countries like Switzerland, they thrive on is the rule of law, efficient legal system. These are some of the issues that also will help the economic freedom of a country, and which, of course, Netherlands has a lot of that. Nigeria has not so much of it. You think that we can have some learning to do with the Netherlands in this kind of fora?
Well, again, so a bit of audio issues, not clearly. But I know that Netherlands has a GDP of over a trillion US dollars. It's one of the biggest economies in Europe. And when you are relating with, our economy is just about 400 plus billion US dollars. Although we have a recent estimate from IMF saying that our economy is much smaller, but whatever it is, we have a big economy, at least within the context of Africa. And Netherlands, of course, the trillion naira economy is quite a big economy. And when you have this kind of relationship, there is a whole lot, that the country can benefit from them, because Netherlands is ahead of Nigeria in so many areas. So there are a lot of opportunities for imports that can support our capacity for productivity, not necessarily import of finished goods, but import that can support capacity for productivity and competitiveness. There are also opportunities for exports. We are talking about developing and enhancing more investment in our oil and gas sector. Netherlands is also very, very critical in that sector. Although, there's a flip side to that, because I know up until recently, we import a lot of petroleum products, also refined petroleum products from the Netherlands. Now with our, improvement in domestic refining of petroleum products, that window of opportunity may not be something that they will be too happy about. But there's a whole lot of areas in which we can have this partnership with an economy of the size of Netherlands. There's a whole lot of areas.
Yeah, a whole lot of areas, but like you said, digitization of the economy of the Netherlands, very critical. In areas of IT, very good. Areas of agriculture and export, very good. But one thing I mentioned earlier also is the freedom of the market, of the economy. And the corruption there, the indices are very low compared to Nigeria. And I was asking, I don't know if you can get me right now, and I was asking how this can also help Nigeria, if perhaps we can take one or two things out of the meetings that is going on.
Well, I think that A lot of the outcomes of this visit will depend on how quickly and how effectively the private sector can leverage on the opportunities that it provides. In the statement issued by the presidency, I didn't hear much about the private sector delegation. I haven't seen much information as to who is part of the delegation from the private sector. But what I want to say is that in order to optimize the opportunities from this kind of engagement, there has to be always a very strong private sector delegation accompanying the president, not necessarily at the expense of government. Many of the private sector players have their own capacity to fund this trip. And we must also ensure that we pick people that are relevant to the sectors on which the engagements are likely to take place. I don't know, we don't have information yet on that. But to the extent that I think there's a proposal for Nigerian Netherlands business forum or something in Netherlands, I expect that proposal, that summit, that forum to be populated more by the private sector people. And the private sector also seeking partnerships. And when you have partnerships that are supported by government, you have a lot more resources, a lot more outcomes. There's a lot more credibility, even for the private sector, when they are in a presidential delegation like this. So those are the ways I think we can optimize the opportunities of this kind of visit.
One of the things that the president easily raised at that meeting, and which he says that one of the reasons why the Netherlands also need to look into involving themselves in doing business with Nigeria is the fact that the president thinks that the present administration is cleaning up the foreign exchange market, which I like your comment on. First and foremost, the CBN came out to say, look, based on the analysts and experts, global experts analysis saying that the Naira is perhaps going to be one of the best performing currency in the world. But in the last few days, it does look like there is a slide in the performance of the Naira. Can the CBN and this government sustain the performance of the Naira against the dollar? We thought that it was going towards 1,000 and looking like it was going to go below 1,000. But in the last 2 days, things have changed.
Well, the fact is that this reform, this economic reform, whether we are talking of reforms in the monetary and foreign exchange space or in the fiscal space, these are reforms that we can regard as work in progress. We have seen some gains. We have seen a bit of sliding back and all of that. But to the extent that it is work in progress, we learn as we progress with the reforms, because no reform process is perfect. So as we progress, there will be lessons to learn about how well we can, better ensure much better outcomes. Now we are dealing with a market, and the Nigerian foreign exchange market is also full of a lot of imperfections from a market point of view. So, and these imperfections need to be recognized, they need to be identified. And some of these imperfections are also things that are also fueling speculative activities, a lot of illicit transactions in the foreign exchange market that are distorting the whole dynamics in the foreign exchange market. And the central bank response has been to deal with this issue both from a monetary policy point of view, I'm talking about the liquidity management point of view, and more importantly, from a regulatory point of view. Because what we have seen in the last few months is that there are quite a number of loose ends, a lot of malpractices going on in the market, a lot of things to tidy up in terms of surveillance and things like that. I think that is where I think the CBN has a much more work to do. We have made some progress, no doubt, given where we are coming from, but there's still a lot more work to do. Secondly, The issue of the volatility in the foreign exchange market is something that we need to take up very, very seriously. This is not now about whether the Naira is exchanging for 2,000 or for 1,005 or for 1,100. No. Stability and minimization of volatility is extremely very important. So as we progress with these reforms, and as we address all these gaps in the market, foreign exchange market space, we should also put in place a framework to ensure that we minimize volatility in the foreign exchange market. Because persistent volatility can lead to a loss of confidence. And once confidence begins to collapse or begins to be eroded, it further fuels speculation, it creates uncertainty, it makes the whole environment unpredictable, and that is not good for investment. So I think as a matter of priority, since we are approaching or we are dealing with a system which we have regarded as a managed flows. Managed flows means that from time to time, the CBN will have to manage the situation to minimize volatility, to keep the rates within a particular corridor, within a framework that is sustainable, within the context of the capacity to support the currency. I think as part of the mandate of the central bank has a responsibility to also ensure that we minimize this volatility. You cannot leave the market entirely to the market forces. It is not done anywhere, especially in a market with so much imperfections. So there has to be a framework to ensure that we modulate or moderate the fluctuations and the swings in the foreign exchange market. I think that is extremely very, very important for confidence of investors and to reduce the level of speculative activities in the economy.
Mr. Muda, Yusuf, thank you so much indeed for your insight on some of these issues relating to the economy and the way forward. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you very much. Thank you.